and I was an anchorman in San Antonio before I came up here. They asked me to come up here
that's
about
nice.
2 years ago. I've been
Oh, really?
here. So, okay. For the film editor, obviously we're speaking with Senor Cesar, the business of organizing your brothers for more than 10 years now, more than a decade. Why do you feel it's so necessary to do it?
Well, you see, it's necessary, if for no other reason, to have the workers have a right to determine as workers their own destinies. It's necessary so that they may be able to enjoy the fruits of their labor like almost all workers do in the country. It's necessary because they've come of age as workers. They know that organization is the only way. And it's necessary because it's a great need that exists and someone has to do it.
How successful have you been?
Very successful. If we go back to the days when there were no unions in agriculture, and when we consider all of the history and of the attempts to organize and all the failures, and us being the only union were able to break that barrier, I think very successful.
Of lettuce right now.
The fight has no bearing on the cost. The high cost of lettuce comes because of the rainy season. The rains late last year and early this year destroyed most of the lettuce crop.
Why would somebody in Chicago or the consumer in general want to support your lettuce boycott?
Well, I think that those people who are informed and who understand what the dispute is would want to support it simply because it's a whole question of justice. Simply because workers must have a right to determine by themselves and for themselves which union they want, if they want any union. And the way things are now, workers aren't giving that opportunity. The employer is determining which union should represent them. And we're saying that we need to support. Supporting us is really supporting the right of workers to have the union of their own choosing.
Now, what has kept you going for so long, Cesar Chavez, so long in this struggle, in this fight? What central theme have you followed?
Well, you see, the whole question of injustice is something that keeps me and a lot of people going, knowing that things could be a lot better for people, for human beings. Of course, the most important item is people themselves. When you've gone through those conditions, when you've been a part of them, and when you live and you see them day in and day out, unless you have no conscience, you can't but struggle to make things a little better. But I suppose that it's no different than what makes a man go out and want to do other things, for a lifetime. It's a vocation, I suppose. It's the understanding that these people are human beings and that they're not getting a fair shake, and that in some way one can help, at least in a small way.
Here in Chicago, lettuce comes from different parts of the country. It comes from Michigan, I understand. It comes from Arizona, and it comes from California. Is there an easy way for anybody to distinguish in the store what kind of lettuce they're buying?
You see, most of the lettuce comes from the western part of the United States, from Arizona, California, most of it. And the lettuce that comes in from Michigan and other places is only very seasonal and a very short period.
Well, what parts of the year does that come in? Does the lettuce come in?
Late summer, I suppose.
From Michigan?
If any, yes. You see, people can find out where the lettuce comes out if they really want to by demanding to see the label. Usually the labels are in the cooler part of the store. But most of the lettuce, in most cases, it'll be California, Arizona iceberg lettuce, because that's where the production is. And in our lettuce boycott, of course, we're telling people that if they don't see the black Aztec eagle with the United Farm Workers Union label on it, then we're asking them not to buy it.
Now, we've been talking about lettuce so far. Let's get to the grape boycott. Is this a reality now? Are you calling for a grape boycott? Now, why would the Teamsters want so badly to get rid of you and your union? Want to fight you like this?
You see, the Teamster rank and file, and I suppose most of the locals throughout the country don't. The fight comes from upstairs, from the national leadership, from the Western team, the Western Conference leadership. For whatever reasons they have, that's where the fight comes from. But the rank and file has no liking for the fight, and neither do a lot of the local people.
Now, what are you doing here in Chicago specifically? You're meeting with labor leaders, right? What are you going to tell them?
Well, basically a report of what's happening. Ask them to support the grape boycott, and we're here to meet with a rally of supporters yesterday, and we had a short meeting with the governor, and then we've met other people. We've had some press interviews.
Why hasn't the AFL-CIO given you more money, more than that $1.5 million?
What? Is there more than that? That's a lot of money. We have, for the first time, we're going to be able to have a strike fund. You see, our union has never had money to help workers when they leave the fields, like to pay rent and to buy food and so forth. Now, for the first time, for the next 90 days, we'll have that money, which may make all the difference in the world.
But there was all this time in between when you were out in the desert without any money. Why didn't they help you then?
Well, from about 1959 on through about 1968 or 69, the Federation spent well over $2 million in organizing farm workers. That was even before we were organizing. And then it was during the period when we were not affiliated with the Federation. But I think they've done their part. The problem is that it's such an immense problem. It's organizing farm workers who are not covered by any legislation. Now with the double problem of having to deal with the Teamsters Union and the growers as a combination against us, it's almost an insurmountable problem. The only reason we're able to stay alive and to win is because we have overwhelming support from the American public. The Teamsters coming into Coachella and to the grape fields and snatching those contracts away from us has had a very adverse effect for them. We've had a very, well, it's been a strong reaction. And it's because of this public support that we're able to stay alive and to continue. Otherwise, it would be impossible.
Okay, good. If you could answer the question in about 3 words, or just begin to answer it. Okay. Cesar Chavez, you have been in the business of organizing, once again.
Pull your tie down.
Cesar Chavez, you have been in the business of organizing your brothers now for more than a decade. Why do you feel it's so necessary?
Oh, cut it. Okay. Victory.
No. Cesar Chavez, you have been in the business of organizing your brothers now for the past decade and even longer. Why do you feel it's so necessary?
Almost 2 decades.
How successful have you been?
We're doing okay.
Why would the Teamsters want so badly to crush you and your union?
You have to ask them.
What is the fight doing to the cost of lettuce? Do that one more time.
No bearing.
What is the fight doing to the cost of lettuce?
It has no bearing on the cost of lettuce.
Why should the average consumer or the Chicagoan want to, I'll just do it that way. Why should the average consumer want to support your boycott?
It's a question of justice.
Now, so far we've been talking about lettuce. I understand that you're starting your grape boycott up again, right?
Well, I wouldn't say that if I were you.
What?
last pass.
Most of you, if not all of you, are roughly familiar with the problem that we're here to talk about this morning. And Cesar will fill you in the question period if you're not. My only purpose in being here this morning is to repeat what I said yesterday at the public meeting, and that is that, in my judgment, and I mean no offense to all the volunteers, marvelous volunteers who have, by the hundreds, who have associated themselves with this movement, really heroic people. But in my judgment, the success or failure of this fight, and it is a terrible fight at the moment, is going to depend in large measure on whether or not the labor movement solidly and sincerely and wholeheartedly gets behind the United Farm Workers. I think there may be a tendency to think that because the Executive Council put up some money, and sizable money, that fulfills the obligation of the labor movement. I don't think the money is all that important. It is important, obviously, and it may make or break the strike in the short run. But what is most important, I think, is a wholehearted support at the local level from the entire labor movement. Otherwise, the money is going to be of merely symbolic value, and it won't really do the job. So I'm here to urge the Chicago labor movement, if it needs any urging, and I hope it doesn't, to get behind this thing and push as hard as you can. On the Teamster issue, let me repeat what I said yesterday. I don't know whether any of you were there or not. I can't think of anything I hate doing that gives me more pain, really, than to get into an argument with the Teamsters as I am in now. I haven't the slightest interest in that kind of a fight. I have no interest whatsoever in knifing the Teamsters. I wish they were back in the Federation. That kind of argument is not my cup of tea. But on this issue, it seems to me the Teamsters have left us no choice. They have no business being in this fight. They do not represent the farm workers. They have plenty to do representing their own workers. I don't know why in the world they want to intervene in this thing. They're going to lose. If by bad luck the farm workers lose this particular strike, that doesn't mean they're going to lose the war. They're going to be here, and they're going to stay, and they're going to win if it takes them forever. And I'm sure that most of you, at least some of you, have good personal contacts with Teamsters in the Chicago locals. I think you'd be doing a great service if you could talk to them man to man, not to make a big public issue out of it, but talk to them man to man and ask them, try to encourage them to get their international in the Western Conference to take another look at their cards. They're heading, in my opinion, for sheer disaster in public opinion. I'm not going to stand here and pretend that the Catholic Church or that the Catholic bishops are a radical or revolutionary group, but on this issue I can assure you, at least so long as I'm in the picture, the Teamsters are going to get nothing but trouble from the official church in this country until they get out of this movement. And it's something I don't want to do. I have no desire whatsoever to get into an argument with the Teamsters or to be critical of them or to be fighting them. I said yesterday, and I meant every word of it, I wish to God that I could pick up the paper tomorrow morning and see that the Teamsters had walked away from Coachella and had decided to move out and go about their own business. If they were to do that, then the money that the AFL-CIO Executive Council has put up could be used for constructive purposes. It's a crying shame that the first money that the farm workers have ever had has to be used, in effect, fighting another union. There'd be no prolonged strike in Coachella if it weren't for the Teamsters. Difficult spot for some of you people to be in. No one wants to get into a fight with the Teamsters or with any other union. But on this one, I'm afraid you're going to have to. The integrity of the labor movement, I think, is at stake. In my judgment, are the people in the big cities where the Teamsters are strong and they have a relationship of one kind or another with the local labor movement. You people are in a position to tell them, get the hell out of Coachella, get back and mind your own business, or else you're going to be in trouble with the rest of the labor movement. So I plead with you not.
My good friend, do is just give you a few, see if I can give you a few of the, in a few words, the feeling of the people. And then I'd like you to ask me questions if you have any, and this way maybe we can cover more territory. You know, from the people who have been in the labor movement for many years who come to visit, to come to Coachella and are visiting, one of their first remarks that they make is that they've never seen, or at least in a very long time, the kind of spirit that these workers have for their union. You see, the farm worker, especially that farm worker who was able to work under a union contract, has a tremendous amount of love for the union. To him, the union is something very real, something that happened like right now and made things as different as day and night. When we know that whatever the Teamsters and the Growers may be doing, and the Nixon administration, because we think that they're tied in, whatever they're doing, we know that we represent those workers and that those workers want the Farm Workers Union. And it's evident all over the place. And this gives us a kind of courage, you know, and the kind of insight to get away with this kind of political stuff. I know, it's difficult to understand. You see, over in the West Coast, the director of organization for the Western Conference of Teamsters, a guy named Cesar. And luckily enough, we won every single fight. And we know we're going to win this one. Now, if we win this fight, Greg is going to be out of the picture because I think that his whole reputation is at stake on this one. But as we understand it, there were some people in the Western Conference that didn't want to get into the fight anymore. We're trying to Arvin Ranch, the DeGeorge Arvin Ranch later in '66, we beat him there again. We beat him at the Borrego Springs Farms over in San Diego County.
That's correct. It's only that part of the Teamsters leadership in the West Coast that's really become strike breakers. And if we can get in, and if you can come in, and the Monsignor can come into the meeting tomorrow, of course it has to be rearranged to our good brother L. Towers, and to get Bill Lee to agree, then I think you'd really get the kind of publicity for this city that's so badly needed. That the city of Chicago is behind the Teamsters, behind the farm workers against any kind of scabbing. So if you can make it your business, some of us are delegates to the Federation, and I think it would be good to have you come there tomorrow if that can be arranged.
Federation of Labor points out clearly, and Bill Lee at the head, that representatives of the Farm Workers Union made their appearance there and were welcome over there and received the respect of the delegates at the Chicago Federation of Labor meetings. Bill Lee being a Teamster, former Teamster, I say the relationship in Chicago is so good with the Teamsters that rather than to think that the Teamsters are bad throughout the country, you cannot find that in the Chicago area. This may be the nucleus of starting something, as Monsignor suggested, that we can get to these local unions of the Teamsters.
And Bill's a very good personal friend of mine, and I'm perfectly willing to do it, but I don't want him to think that I'm coming in
By the Teamsters, if that's what you want to call, use the word loosely, negotiated, and that this thing in the forefront and continued efforts on a part of the church as they're part of this picture and the awakening of the labor movement will give us the dividends that we seek in this thing.
Yes.
You mentioned Mr. Graham.
Grammy.
Grammy?
Yeah.
I was wondering whose mind.
Oh, so we hear. We don't know. This is just rumors. But it's Bill Grammy, the guy that has went around and sold the whole idea. See, Bill Grammy got badly defeated by us in Delano, and he's never forgotten it. Twice, in the space of about 2 years.
Yeah. Okay. Whatever the outcome of the meeting tomorrow, okay, this is track for the 6 o'clock news.
Cesar Chavez came to Chicago to ask for help, and he got some. He got some money, and he apparently got the beginning of some political help for government. George, pick it up from the top. Cesar Chavez came to Chicago today to ask for help, money and political support. He got a little of both. Mostly what he wanted was labor support. Chances are pretty slim that he is going to get much of that. For as labor a town as Chicago is, it does not seem likely that our city's AFL-CIO and Teamsters union members are going to fight each other and join the battle over California grape workers. Pat Brown, Channel 7 Eyewitness News. Cesar Chavez came to Chicago today to ask for help, money and political support. He got little amounts of both. Mostly what he wants is Chicago's labor community to join the battle. The chances appear slim that that is going to happen. For as labor a town as this is, it does not seem likely that Chicago's Teamsters and AFL-CIO unions will begin battling each other. Pat Brown, Channel 7 Eyewitness News. Doo-dah, doo-dah.
Delano, they went, when it comes to the question of, besides having a union, they don't want to have farm workers get organized in the rural areas because that represents a change of power eventually in those rural areas of the United States. We went to the workers that were working inside, and we were getting reports that they were with our union, but they needed to work. They had just gotten back from Texas, from Colorado, from Arizona. And this was about 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. We began to talk to them over the loudspeakers, and we began to take votes with them. While they're working inside, we began to talk to them about the change. All of our members, they've worked there every year. They were full of just tap water, no ice, and one beer can open the top with a piece of baling wire as a handle. A community cup for 150 workers. And we said, we have not seen you drink water. Either you're not thirsty or afraid to drink water. So the same thing happened. Pretty soon all 150 were out there trying to get a drink of water. Imagine with one cup. And so they finally got them in again. Our own type of union. The idea of workers being able to speak up whenever they want to criticize, to correct, to suggest, to demand, whatever it is. The freedom of the worker to be able to express himself fully without any fear of there being anyone going over to see him at night, to even the score because he got up and gave the leadership of the union a bad time. And this is the kind of union that we have, and that's the kind of union the workers want. This is the reason why the workers are with us. We're going to win with your help. The grapes are going to be coming in pretty soon, whatever they pick. And it's extremely important that we are prepared to stop the grapes, to boycott AMP, to boycott the other stores, and to let the whole world know that for the time being, grapes, we want to thank you. We want to thank you. make a promise to you. We're going to pursue the goal that we've had and the dream that we've had for years.
You sit down just a minute. When we're clapping our hands, we can't get our hands in our pockets and our purses to get money. Want to make... Is Maria Armenta here? Maria Armenta comes forward. She has one of the delegations here is led by Nancy Wells.
Responsible for the price of meat, but we intend to see you get your share of whatever money that is that comes from this production.
Dogs and court injunctions and being arrested at 4 o'clock in the morning and being asked to post $400 and $500 bond for misdemeanors.
The very first piece of legislation that I was successful in getting through the City Council, and some of you may think it's the only piece, but the very first piece of legislation that I was able to sponsor and successfully pass was a resolution in 1969 putting the city of Chicago firmly on record in support of the United Farm Workers, Cesar Chavez, and the grape boycott.
The unprovoked assault on Father John Bank by a member of the Teamsters staff in Coachella, California was absolutely disgraceful from every point of view and must not be allowed to go unpunished. The fact that Teamster officials themselves have neither condemned this assault nor repudiated the guilty party shows an appalling lack of responsibility on their part and crass indifference to public opinion. Their continued silence raises the suspicion that they approve of such violent tactics on the part of their organizers, or in any event are either unable or unwilling to discipline their own staff. The burden of proof is on.
Announcement was made that the National AFL-CIO would be making a contribution of $1 million. The Director of the United Farm Workers, Cesar Chavez.
Chester Reese fields and the lettuce fields in California to let the workers decide which union they want, if any. As all of you know, a strike and boycott that started in September of 1965 in the Delano area, which lasted 58 and a half months, a strike and boycott that many of the experts in the country told us then that it couldn't be done. They told us that the strike would be lost, as all strikes in farm labor had been lost prior to that time. We're told by some of the experts that the great boycott was no hope for the American public to respond to the simple act of not eating grapes. And as you know, 58 and a half months later, with tremendous sacrifice, an awful lot of hope, and help from millions and millions of Americans and Canadians and Europeans and Latin Americans, we brought those growers into our union hall in Delano, and they filed in and one by one signed the grape contracts. couldn't understand why the growers had taken this dangerous adventure. And we're beginning to realize now what made them, the growers, embark on this adventure. You see, immediately after the announcement was made, we called our people together and we began to strike. And we found out two and a half hours later, very directly, what was in store for us. From that Saturday, that Sunday, April 15th in Los Angeles, to come to the fields in Coachella, they're still there today, over 100 of them. They're paying them $67.50 a day. They were brought there to harass us. And these are the men that beat up Father Bank, the same man that beat up a 19-year-old girl, Alicia, and the same man that beat up yesterday a 17-year-old striker. When this phase of the labor history is written in this country, and will not be right away, this will be certainly the most shameful act that any union has ever attempted against another union. What the Teamsters are trying to do to us is not simply trying to take one local from us. They've got a plan. They're going in there because they've tried many ways to destroy the movement, and they have not been able to. They've gone in there with the arrogance that comes only from unchecked power, with the arrogance that comes only with unlimited resources, financial and political. They've gone into Coachella, into Delano, into Fresno, everywhere where we have contracts, and they've insisted the growers sign with them, and in many cases the growers have been threatened that if they sign with the Teamsters will refuse to move their produce. And so their attempt is not simply to take one local away from us, but is to try to destroy the Farm Workers Union completely. You see, brothers and sisters, we're going to win the strike because we have to win the strike, because if we don't have a union. And some of us have labored too long. Some of the workers, most of the workers, have gotten used to their own brand and type of unionism, the kind that the farm workers represent, and they're not about to take any other union, even a union that represents truck drivers. It'd be well to consider the following. You see, to the West Coast, everywhere,